Yeah. No,
I like that.
I would
I
not.
like how simple that is. Like, no, I'm good.
Yeah.
Well, so basic submarine construction that we all are familiar with. The only way to open up the hatch, like the front door of that submarine, was from the outside.
I heard about this. It's like bolted on, right? There's no
You can only do it from the
There's no
outside.
way
So
for
even
them
if
to come out.
they could, even if they could emergency surface somehow, if there was a casualty,
You're stuck out there until someone
they're
retrieves
still
it.
running on the oxygen they have inside the vessel itself.
And there's no CO2 scrubbers, right?
I think they have a way to circulate the CO2, but not like what you're thinking, like what we had, where you can scrub it and then dump it off board and whatnot.
Yeah. That was something else that I had read. And so, because someone who's like, not familiar with submarines at all, were like, what's a CO2 scrubber and why didn't they have one? Like, why is that a big deal? And I was like, it'd be a big deal because human bodies put off CO2. And if you can't get rid of it inside of an enclosed tube, you'll die. That's why it's a big deal.
That was one of the questions I kept getting. A lot of like people in my command is a lot of surface people, so people keep asking me questions about how like all that works, and I was like, yeah, well, if they're still alive and they have 40 hours of oxygen left, they're probably passed out. The amount of CO2 that they have in the vessel, they have like massive headaches, probably passed out, probably puking. Like there's a lot when you have high CO2 and low O2. Like, I mean, it's not a fun experience. And I even told them, and I'm sure you guys had the same thought as when you first heard the report that they were descending for almost 2 hours and then they lost comms. I bet you any money that your brain was like, there's a hull rupture. They imploded. They died as fast as you could possibly die.
I didn't assume it was a hull rupture. I think a lot can happen, right? Like it's creating communications from 13,000 feet is like there's some technical feats that need to occur for that to happen, right? Like radio waves don't work underwater well.
No, so they had two forms of comms. They had like basic SMS, like text messages.
Sure. How did that work? How did that get to the surface?
Something I couldn't tell you the details, but the other one was a 15-second, I believe it was, or 30-second ping.
Okay.
Which can be heard.
Yeah.
And that's what they lost, was like after the hour and 45, they lost that ping.
Okay.
Which, you think about it, right? Basic submarine stuff. Okay, you lost a ping. You have no power. Well, why don't you have power?
Yeah, I don't know. How was this thing powered? Batteries, right? I imagine.
I believe so. I think it was lithium, like 24 volt.
That's the same shit they put in a vacuum cleaner. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting. Well, so yeah, my first thought was not implosion. I figured, I mean, the scary part, I guess my brain went to worst case scenario, which was like they lost propulsion and were like literally sitting on the bottom of the ocean with like no communication and like you said, maybe 40 hours of O2.
Yeah.
I would much rather have an implosion and die instantly than that.
Yeah. I mean,
and there's been weird news reports too. Like people don't understand how that works. Like they're talking about like, oh, well, are we going to recover the bodies? It's like no, like they're ash.
Not from that depth, right?
No, they're done. Like that's the.
I think most people though that are asking that, they're coming from the standpoint of like a lot of surface ships when they sink, right? Because it's not the same pressurization.
It's not instantaneous.
You can go down and recover bodies. Same thing with like submarine, disasters that have occurred in shallower water. It's just not the same. But yeah, when you're dealing with that pressure,
when you're dealing with instantaneous equalization, is essentially what it is. The diesel effect, like that's kind of It's. I'm going to read you a thing. I pulled it up just because I knew we were going to talk about this implosion thing, and giving anyone who's listening an idea of what they went through.
I saw this. I think. Did
I
you post this somewhere the other day?
I did post it.
Okay, I read this. But yeah, this is super interesting to me.
The number one question I got. So I'm going to read it real quick. I'm going to pull it over here. All right. So when a submarine hull collapses, it moves inward at about 1,500 miles per hour. That's 2,200 feet per second. A modern nuclear submarine's hull radius is about 20 feet. And this hull radius was about 9 feet, I believe, for the Titan. So the time required to complete a collapse on a 20-foot submarine, like width or radius, is about 1 millisecond. That's a key number there. A human brain responds to stimulus at about 25 milliseconds. Human rational response, which is sense, reason, and act, is at best 150 milliseconds. The air inside the sub has a fairly high concentration of hydrocarbon vapors. When the hull collapses, it behaves like a very large piston on a very large diesel engine. The air auto-ignites, and an explosion follows the initial rapid implosion. Large blobs of fat, which in this case would be people, incinerate and are turned to ash and dust quicker than you can blink your eye. It sounds gruesome, but as a submariner, like we all are, or were, I always wished for a quick hull collapse death over a lengthy one, like some of the crew on the Kursk endured. You don't know what happened to the Kursk. That's a whole other topic. But basically, when it happened, which the hull ruptured, their brains didn't even register that there was anything happening.
That something occurred. Yeah,
lights
you're just
on,
gone. Right.
lights out, done.
Which is crazy to think about.
Which is the way. I mean,
It's
of
the best
all the
way you could go.
underways. Yeah, it's of all the underways, and every single underway, probably on every single submarine, there has been a conversation about it, and like that's the way you want to go.
Yeah, I mean, I think back to so I don't know if either one of you were on board the boat my very first day out, because I was there a little bit before both of you. On the very single first day that I went actually underway in a nuclear submarine, we had a fire on board.
Right.
Like in the first 8 hours.
Was that the EOGs?